you are whole as a person. You were whole from the time, that moment that you were born, and you will be whole for the rest of your life. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing broken with you. Your body is not broken, right? And this is true even if you're dealing with any kind of health issues. Because this is not the kind of message that we often get from society, from our world, from even other medical professionals or other experts that we look up to. And this is what I will be talking about, because I find that this mentality of trying to fix ourselves is not really serving us, and it's certainly not sustainable, right? So just the kind of message that we constantly get, that we are taught from childhood, that if we fall sick, we need to immediately fix it, right? And fixing is usually in the form of medication if it's a simple thing. So if we have fever, then we need to fix it by taking paracetamol or Crocin. But we are not taught how to think differently. So for example, has anyone ever told you to really take a moment and figure out why you have fever, right? Just to pause for a minute or two to understand what may be going on before you medicate the symptom away. And honestly think about this. If we are taught to do this for these kind of minor symptoms, we can actually prevent many of the serious health issues that can crop up over a period of time, because we are able to prevent a majority of them. But we are not told that fever can be a good thing. It's a sign of a healthy immune system. So immune system is trying to protect you, and fever is a sign of that. So it's actually a good thing in that sense. And it's your body is doing this deliberately. It's raising your temperature so that your immune system can do its job of protecting you. So it's something that is a normal thing. Of course, it's not about whether we should take medication or not. It is both and, right? That's actually something that I keep talking about again and again, that it's not this or that. So a month or so ago, my son had fever. He's 12 years old, so he's not very young anymore. He so obviously if it's a very young child or a baby, you need to take that into consideration. And this is not medical advice by any means, but in our case, I know him. I knew that there were no other symptoms. So in his particular case, I decided that let me just wait and watch if his symptoms worsen, if new symptoms develop, or he's sort of just okay. So because I knew what had happened, I knew that throughout the week, this was on a Friday, so he developed a fever on Friday. Throughout the week, for some reason or the other, he had not stuck to his regular bedtime routine or the proper bedtime. And he needs his sleep, right? All of us do, whether we realize it or not. So he'd not really got adequate sleep. And he had a hectic school week. He had after school classes. So all of that had a role to play in him actually developing fever. But if I had not thought that through, if I had not paused for that, I would have certainly given him medication for that. And in short, all he needed was a good night's sleep. And that's exactly what happened. As I made my son go to bed early that night, and I did not really need to give him any medication, and the fever was gone by the next day. But again, keep in mind that this depends on person to person, depends on any unique situation. So you need to keep that in mind. This is not any form of medical advice, really. Right? Thank you for joining. I am talking about why this mentality of fixing ourselves to get well is really not sustainable, and why we need to think about how we are approaching long-term health, right? And this mentality about the feeling that I get, because I work with women with serious health issues, serious chronic illnesses, and then the feeling, the kind of feeling that they develop over a period of time. And this is because of the messages that we constantly get, is that our body is broken in some way, right? We are broken in some way. What we are doing is not enough. No matter what we do, it's not going to be enough, right? It's a very disempowering place to be. And one of the my biggest objectives in putting together my own coaching program, and the reason I share a lot of these kind of resources, is that this is a problem. right? The problem with fixing ourselves is that we give up a lot of our own power, and it leaves us feeling helpless and disempowered, right? That's not the kind of place you want to be, especially if you're dealing with any kind of health issues, let alone any kind of serious health, chronic issues like autoimmune conditions, like cancer for that matter, or any really anything. I mean, it can be any illness, right? Because that's not going to serve you, that's not going to motivate you, that's not going to give you the hope that you need to keep going, right, to do the things that are necessary. And all of it requires us to take a step back and look at things with a different lens. But that's not what we are told to do. We are constantly focusing on all the things that have gone wrong, right? And that's completely human, that's completely natural. But I think we all need to understand that there is another way, and that's something that we focus on a lot in the functional medicine style of health coaching. And but before I get into that, and actually that's the tool of positive psychology, which is actually the reason why even even after few years of working with me, my clients can still, when I connect with my clients, I'm in touch with them actually. Even after 2-3 years, they are able to maintain many of the changes, habits that they had developed when they worked with me for 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. Even after that, kind of time has passed, and that is because they really got to know themselves. They really got to understand their own power to heal themselves, right? That's the beauty. So when you are empowered, when you feel empowered, you're not helpless anymore. You're not dependent on another person to get well and stay well, right? You have all the tools that is necessary right with you, right? Inside of you to some extent and with you. So the problem with fixing ourselves, right? So this is, I see it as a problem. The problem with fixing ourselves is that our default mode goes to all the things that are wrong with us, right? And when we do that, so how is that problematic? The problem with focusing only on things that are going wrong is that it is highly demotivating. It is the opposite of what builds resiliency, because let's face it, healing, and I talk about healing a lot. You will never hear me talk about curing. That's another thing that I truly believe in, because healing, when I'm talking about healing, I'm talking about physical, spiritual healing, right? Emotional healing. It's not just about getting rid of symptoms, but when we are trying to heal ourselves, we need to be able to. Okay, I lost my mode of thinking. But the default mode of focusing on what's only going wrong does not really serve us in any way, shape or form. When we also focus on things that are going well with our lives, that's when true magic happens. Because at the end of the day, what we need to understand, and again, this is all contrary to what is the norm, right? Because what typical conventional media, conventional medicine believes is that health is the absence of disease, and that is certainly not true. But that's how many of us see it, that health is the absence of disease. So if we don't have a disease, then we should be healthy, right? Wrong. That's not what it is. Health is a completely different arena. It's a paradigm shift. That's what we need to look at it, right? Which is why disease care, which is what the conventional medicine is focused on. It's excellent for disease care. So if you have a disease, you have infections, you need a surgery immediately, there's an accident, all of it, acute care, right? It's brilliant in that, but it fails miserably when it comes to chronic issues. Why? Because chronic issues do not develop overnight. They are multifactorial, and most importantly, again, health is not the absence of disease. It has developed over a period of time for many different reasons which have to be addressed. So what happens is that if we believe that if somehow we can get some tests done, if we get a yearly, which is actually what happens, if we get a yearly full blood report done, if we get mammogram done every year, if we sort of just do a few tests, take a few medications every year, bring our cholesterol levels down, that's good enough, right? That's not health, right? Because you've done nothing to create health. You've done everything to keep your numbers low. Maybe numbers look fine, But that, does that really mean that you are healthy? That's the reason a lot of times we hear of people who looked perfectly healthy who are doing all the right things. In fact, it's so sad because you will have a lot of times you will hear about young men in their 40s, a lot of them in their 50s maybe, and even younger, who develop different diseases, chronic illnesses, and maybe they look completely healthy from the outside. They are doing they're running marathons, but then they sort of drop dead of a heart attack, right? So we don't really stop to ask what kind of quality of life are we living, right? That's what true health is all about. It's not only the number of years, it's also what kind of quality of life that we are living. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything that resonated with you, give me a thumbs up so I know that it's sort of you are able to pick up what I'm dropping here. So that will be great. If you have any questions, drop that as well. Because this is an important topic. I talk about diet, I talk about toxins, I talk about stress, a lot of things, but this part a lot of times get missed, right? And I focus a lot on it in my own coaching program, but I would like you to know about this as well. And finally, Dr. Martin Seligman, he's a very well-known psychologist. He has shown that what is more effective than only focusing on what's wrong with us is when we integrate the whole human experience, the good and the bad, right? So we don't obviously ignore ignore what's going wrong or what's going on with us, but at the same time we also put our focus on what's going well. So for example, this is one of the core tools that we use in functional medicine health coaching and that I use in my own practice, and it is remarkably effective. So one of the first questions that I ask in any coaching session is, what are you celebrating today? Right? What is it that you would like to celebrate? And it's not about this big, huge, humongous celebration. It's something that you feel, you feel good about, right? Something that you've appreciated in your life, something that you were able to achieve, no matter how small it might be. Because when we start to look at all the roses which are there, in spite of all the thorns, it makes a huge difference. So a stem of rose bush has many thorns, but it also has beautiful roses. So we have to train ourselves to look, of course we can't ignore the thorns because the thorns are really prickly and can hurt us. So we need to be very careful when dealing with a rose bush or a stem. But at the same time, we need to also be able to appreciate the rose, right? It's easier to do with that, but the same thing we need to do in our own lives, especially when we are going through some kind of health issue, health conditions. And this is actually true for any aspect of our life, not just health. Because when you change the way that you look at the world changes. So what happens for I've seen it happening in my own life. I've seen it happening with my clients, that when we change the filter through which it's like a camera through which you're seeing the world, or a lens through which you're seeing the world, and you just decide to change that lens, it makes everything clearer. It can make everything better. Nothing has really changed in the outside world, but your way of seeing that has changed completely, and that can make all the difference. It can give you the strength, it can build resiliency, it can give you hope, it can show you ways that you could have never thought of earlier, the ways of sort of helping yourself, supporting yourself, asking for help, right? All these things that are so important to create what I call a healing environment, because it's an environment both internal and external that will decide whether you move towards health or you move towards disease. You're never standing still. So it's not about, again, coming back to the notion of, it's not about health being an absence of disease. It's actually figuring out how you can move towards greater well-being, right? And again, it can be physical health, emotional health, or spiritual health, right? And it's a lot of times it's all three. So at the end of the day, when healing is from the inside out, That's what's sustainable. When you are able to tune into your own body's needs, when you're able to pay attention and support your body the way it needs to, that's when you take back your power. We all have tremendous power to heal ourselves. We are all healers in our own way. It's just that we've forgotten how. Right? We've just forgotten how to do this. When we are born, when we are very young children, we are innately tuned into ourselves. We know, we may not know who we are yet, who knows, but we have this ability to sort of be in the moment, to be present completely with ourselves just the way we are. But that's where we need to that's where we need this reminder, and this reminder is for you today. It's a reminder that your thoughts, your beliefs, your choices and your actions all play a huge role in whether you will heal from how you'll be able to manage a particular health issue. And this is exactly what my Healing from Within program is based on. It's a 3-pillar framework, and it's simplify, reconnect and sustain. I've talked about it in earlier videos, earlier sessions, and I cover aspects like interconnectedness between our bodies, our minds, our thoughts, everything. They're all interconnected. Body acceptance is key if we are to get well and stay well and make sure that we are on the right path. And of course, self-care, right? Self-care is something which gets missed out, which is as a result of which many people are not able to sustain the health that they create, right? So if you would like to explore this further, if you would like to know more about how this program can help you, make sure that you head to aninditaroonghta.com/call, or head to the link in bio to schedule a free 30 minutes discovery call. So aninditaroonghta.com/call. Thank you for joining me today.